Hello, hello, and welcome here. So, today's topic is going to be rejection and abandonment. So, I'm guessing if you find this video or being part of this channel, you have perhaps complex PTSD or similar kind of diagnosis, right? You've had developmental trauma, some abuse or neglect growing up, right? Because abandonment and rejection triggers can come for other reasons and show up a lot in the for people with autism and ADHD as well. Especially, I think there's a name now for that as well, right? A separate diagnosis: rejection sensitive dysphoria, I believe, if I got that correct. But I just really want you to open your heart a little bit, and perhaps some of the sharings here today will shift something for you. Maybe someone else's comments, right? I really encourage you to participate and engage and ask questions and share your tips and your resources or your perception shifts and things like that here too, because maybe it's not what I'm sharing that kind of creates that shift for you, but perhaps it's something you read in the comments from someone else, right? Let's all learn from each other. But I think the rejection and abandonment is such a huge trigger that really can impact every aspect of our life, right? Is because it has at its core safety, right? Because I'm assuming this is something that stems from very early on in your childhood. For some of you, it might have been in infancy, right? Not even that there was no one there, right? And it doesn't even have to be abuse, right? Perhaps your mom had postnatal depression and she was just emotionally not responsive. She was not able to be there. So it wasn't really that she was vicious. It was just her own mental health, which inhibited her from being the mother that she would have otherwise have liked or loved to be for you, right? But when that was not there, when the outside world doesn't respond to our needs, when there is not enough food, right? When there is not enough attention, when there's not enough touch, when we just feel alone, like a little baby, right? They did that study, I think it's called about the still face. I can't remember the researcher now. But the mother was only allowed to not make any facial expression, and the infant was just lying there, right? That still face, and within minutes that infant was really distressed, right? Because there was no response, there was nothing, no feedback, there was nothing given there. So that can be hugely devastating for a child's development, right? Because my need for safety, for nurture, for growing, and that is dependent on our caregivers, right? So what happens for so many of us when we reach adulthood, the minute someone, or we get we're probably slightly sensitive to that sense of rejection, right? Such a deep wound. So when something happens, that whole sense of safety, everything within us kind of collapses, and we go into this really reactive mode and we're frantic. For some people, it plays out more like they need a lot of assurance and neediness and checking up and that suspicion about other people. Or it can go in the other side, where we almost reject other people before there is even a possibility to form any attachment or anything, right? I'm getting in before, I'm protecting myself, I'm super independent, I don't need anyone, I don't need you, right? That I've done both. And perhaps you too, right? We have a tendency to flip from one extreme to another extreme. and that can be okay too. But perhaps that fear of rejection is very prominent in your life right now, and that is why you found this video. And I really want you to pause for a moment and to just acknowledge where this is coming from and how understandable it is that you are feeling that way, that huge fear is there, right? Because it's never been resolved, right? If we haven't had a look at it, if we haven't had the capacity to hold these emotions, to process that, right? There's a lot that needs to go on. It's not just a sense of safety. We can't just, when we're dealing with the fear of abandonment and fear of rejection, we can't just work on that fear. There's so much more going on, right? Like we said, that sense of safety, that within my body that I can feel safe, right? I mean, there was a time in a relationship where I thought if that relationship breaks up, I could not exist without that other person, right? I was an adult. I was in an adult body at that time. As a child, obviously, we can't exist without a caretaker, right? Parent, whoever that was for you. But when that shows up in our relationship, it has a very needy, clingy kind of energy with it, right? That's what often was said to me, right? You're so clingy. And I couldn't understand back then, right, what it was. And perhaps that shows up for you too, right? Let me know. It's okay. We want to just shine a light on it. Where is this coming from? Normalizing or accepting or validating that within us, how difficult that was, right? How difficult that would be for an infant or a little child, however old you were when you first had that fear showing up. But what happened for most of us, because there was so much trauma, is it's not only just the fear of rejection. There has not been a development of that sense of self. This is who I am. This is my values. These are my boundaries, right? This is what I'm okay with. This is what I'm not okay with, right? And we really need to look at those kind of things as well, because sometimes we get into relationships or friendships, and even knowing, we might intellectually know there's all these red flags and that is not okay. But our fear of that rejection, our fear of being alone is so big that we ignore our values, we ignore our boundaries, we push that down, and we give other people another chance, and we want that, so desperately want that, right? That relationship. And especially when you're thinking about when the relationships growing up for you, if there was a lot of abuse and a lot of trauma, right? The quality of those relationships, what were they like, right? Most likely they were not very nurturing. And in our adult life, then when there is people who are not responding to our needs in a more compassionate or more nurturing kind of way, this is so familiar to us, that type of relationship, that we don't even get out of it, right? We just, it's familiar. Yeah, that's how it's been for me all my life, right? So what do we do about it? So I think that part for myself, that was probably one of the most important areas where I had a lot of support, right? Because there was so much distorted thinking and beliefs going on for myself that I couldn't even see. I was very oblivious to that. So a therapist or a coach pointing that out to me was really helpful in that time. So I'm hoping that you have someone that you can work through that as well. But there was a lot of going on before even thinking about other people, right? A lot happened in a therapeutic relationship, but also for myself to find a way to restore some sense of safety in my body, to be able to use another human being to co-regulate my nervous system, right? And often that is by looking at someone's face. And for many of us, right, we have a habit to misinterpret other people's facial expressions, and to be like, not to criticize ourselves on this, right? They're just all symptoms of our PTSD. They're all symptoms from trauma, that there is a tendency to misinterpret that, to know that. But what really helped me in that, initially with the whole co-regulation, because it was so difficult for me to actually use a human being face to face to co-regulate, to actually look another human in their eyes. It was almost overwhelming. Even though I wanted that, there was a longing there for this connection and that care and that loving. But the minute it kind of got in, it didn't even really get to touch my heart. It was almost like, oh, this is too much. I can't deal with that. This is so emotional. It's nice emotional, but I don't know what to do with that, right? And I shut it down. So for me, actually, the videos on YouTube or courses that I did were really helpful. So I looked for a person and play around with this. It might be female or male that works better for you. Blue eyes, brown eyes, different skin colors. It doesn't really matter. You've got your nervous system. Just feel into it. What kind of face and eye, or who is that person? It doesn't even matter what that person talks about. But when you're looking at that, does that actually have a sense in my nervous system that it's calming down? So I used videos for that. I know it might sound a bit freaky or weird, and it's okay. Get really creative. Use what is available to you, right? Especially when our PTSD is really flared up. Most of us are really struggling to hold down a job and earning money and we don't have that much money to have a ton of therapy sessions, to have a therapist to co-regulate. So use other things, right? So videos really help for me. Just go and search around and find someone that you can just kind of gaze in their eyes and be in your body. Like I sit with my feet on the ground, so I really ground myself and if you can even touch yourself and if that is soothing to you, right? To even explore that while you're doing that, to really help yourself. Oh, it's okay. I'm basically okay in this moment. I'm in an adult body. I'm home alone. I have food in the fridge. I'm in no immediate danger. I'm okay. And using that other person's eyes to help you to feel a sense of safety again, right? I hope that makes sense. Let me know too. Oh, hi, Kay. Kay Sutherland. My pronunciation. For me, it came from my mother, who used to threaten to leave me as a little girl. Only by begging could I get her to calm down and stay. I thought it was all my fault, but I was only little. So true, right? This is the component. This is why working on rejection and abandonment is quite a unique process. I can share some tips and things for you with you guys, but you all have a very unique flavor to this. Like in this instance, that we almost layer that the fear of rejection and abandonment with a sense of shame and something is really wrong with me. I am to blame for this. I'm responsible for other people rejecting me. And we then play this out in our adult relationship, constantly having that sense that I'm responsible for what is happening, why people are pushing or leaving me or don't want to spend time with me, right? To really feel into that. So that, as I said, this is quite unique. What we really want to focus on is to get curious and play around with what does it feel in my body, to just pause and realize that I actually, in this moment, I have everything that I need. It's nice to have another person, but when that person walks out that door, that doesn't mean that I'm all in a sudden starving and dying in that sense, right? This is not what we're thinking in a sense, but our nervous system is wired in a sense. In infancy or when you're a very young child, it needs that connection. It needs a connection for survival, right? This is where the food, the nurturing comes from. Without it, you would literally die. So this is why this is so intense for us in adulthood, because somehow subconsciously or unconsciously that is still there. I'm going to die. If that person walks out of the door, I'm going to die. Right? And sometimes that might be a part of it. That's crazy. No, of course I'm not. I can still go to the fridge and make myself food now. I'm in an adult body. But in that moment, we almost regress, right? There's a lot of regression happening for people, especially with PTSD from childhood trauma, that you, in that moment, you no longer feel like an adult self. Like if I would be there and I'd ask you, how old are you? You probably would be struggling to tell me your age, right? In that moment, because it's so intense, it so pulls you back to that. So when we're having moments throughout the day, right, couple it with something, when you're brushing your teeth, or when you're having your cup of things that you would do all the time anyway. When you hop in the car, when you put the key in the engine, pause for a moment and just put your feet down. It's like, in this moment, I'm basically okay. All my, I can look after myself. I'm not dependent on another human being in such a way. And gently getting myself to do things on my own as well, and explore whether this is initially I was scared, or I had so much resistance to go to a coffee shop by myself, right, and order coffee. That was just the weirdest thing. Now it's one of my loves. I actually do really enjoy going to coffee shops and sit there and have my cuppa and read or journal or do something like that, right? Or for you to just get some sense of agency back, right? That can look very different for you. Maybe it is that you decide to go for a walk by yourself, or that you join some group, some hobbies, start something new, to just realize I can book this in for myself. I can organize this for myself. I can show up for myself. I don't need that other being, right? And just that I'm not, my existence is not dependent on that other person. And at the same time, when we're practicing doing these kind of things, we also want to develop a sense of self, to really explore, what is it actually that I like? What does feeling loved look like in that body, right? What does it mean? To explore when I am with that person, when we're talking, when we're having a conversation, what does that do to my nervous system? Am I feeling more regulated? Am I feeling heard? Am I feeling seen? Am I feeling appreciated? Or is it the opposite? When I'm with that person, I actually feel like I need to really guard up, right? I'm getting tense. I'm worried what I'm going to say, and that kind of, it's perhaps a little extreme. It's anywhere from that in between, right? To really getting curious about and in tune what kind of emotional responses or reactions even are kind of triggered within my body with certain people, right? Because especially at the beginning, it will feel more like triggering. So I don't get triggered by these things anymore. I want you to know that too. While I was really, really triggered, big time, that was a large chunk of my healing journey was just focused on that, right? I no longer get triggered by that, right? I can be, I know there's a wholeness there. It's nice to be with people. I like hanging out with people. I like receiving messages from my friends, but I don't have to have them for me to feel good and to feel okay and to feel loved and having a good day, right? So I really want you to know that we can rewire that part of ourselves with a little dedication, right? it is that rewiring process. It doesn't happen overnight, right? And we really want to start in with people where you get more of a sense of safety than people that that are very challenging to start with, right? If you're at the moment in a relationship that is very rocky and you actually have a sense that you don't actually want to be with that person, but at the same time you're too scared to be alone, right? This isn't the place where you want to start working on this, right? Because that is that's that weird PTSD symptom. It's that push and pull. At the same, even though we want that person to be here with us and we want to have that connection and that relationship and that sense of belonging, at the same time we push it away, right? It sounds crazy in a way, but I know I've done that, right? This simultaneous push-pull, and it's very confusing for other people. But someone who is actually very grounded in themselves, right, who is healthy, has a healthier response towards our chaotic kind of way of being in that moment, towards someone else who also has a rejection or abandonment fear, right? For different people, it plays us different ways, right? For someone else, I like how Eckhart Tolle calls them the pain bodies that we still have in our body, right? There's really sore pain bodies, and the other person has a pain body. And when we're getting together, when we're having those conflicts, it's not actually us talking, it's those pain bodies, right? They're magnets. Oh, I found a matching pain body, and then it's kind of amplified, right? Because perhaps your neediness triggers in the other person that they may have had a caretaker that was very needy, and they always had to look after them and make them feel better, or whatever it was, right? And now you were similar in a way, and you trigger that in them, so they're pushing you away, which is triggering your rejection that your parents or whatever was never there for you. Right? This is really kind of very dysfunctional, hurtful kind of dynamic going on, right, for some of us, and it takes a lot of courage to really look at that, right, at a deep level. And for many of us, there's a huge grieving process within that, and people often don't realize that, right? Because what we're longing for and striving in all this kind of relationship is that we're still looking for this nurturing, loving parent, right, out there somewhere, right? But this is in your partner, in your friend, in your co-worker. You're looking for that parent that you didn't have. And what part of the healing is in our adult life is to realize that we'll never have that. You're in an adult body now. You're no longer that child. We didn't have that. We cannot make that happen. We cannot go back in time and rewrite that part. And there's a grieving that comes with that. There's a lot of sadness, or that was at least for me, right? That there's sadness that the childhood wasn't the way I wanted it to be. Things didn't go the way I wanted it. And there's no way I can undo that. And that sadness, that grieving came for me in waves, right? There was some in the beginning, and I thought I was over it, and then I had to revisit it a few years down the track, and a few years. It's just got deeper and deeper in the layers in my ability to let that go. I don't have no. It doesn't feel like there's any more grieving around that for me at this present, but I don't know, maybe next year that there might be some sadness coming up again, to allow that to come up and to really validate that and acknowledge that, of course there's sadness. Of course you wanted a loving caretaker parent, right? It's we're wired for that, right? This is just normal. But to really allow yourself to grieve for this. Okay, so my therapist is going to talk about enmeshment with me as it was like I was a part of her instead of being a separate individual. This has followed me into my adult relationships. Yes. It's like I needed someone to have an identity. Is that weird? No, I felt the same way. Yeah. And I did that with my therapist, right? But my therapist, it doesn't even have to be romantic relationships or friendship. The therapist taking a holiday, I thought I stopped existing. I know, like even saying this now, how crazy that sounds. Of course, I don't stop existing because my therapist goes on holidays. But there was this rejection, there was this abandonment there. There was a small part in my brain when everyone deserves going on a vacation, on a holiday. I kind of knew it, but that other part was so big, so all-consuming that I was just, again, no, we can't trust human beings was the translation of that, right? He's going on a holiday. See, can't. Human beings are not dependable. They're not trustable. He cannot rely on them to be there. But so that was, and it's normal. I guess it's the symptoms of PTSD, right? It feels really weird, and looking back now, it's like, oh, I can see why this created so much suffering for myself. And that is when we need to realize, when we're going into therapy, right? A therapeutic relationship has a beginning and it has an end, right? So at some point, this is really difficult. Like the main therapist that I had, that I did the most work with, that ending, I did not deal well with that at that time. I thought I was actually doing better, but I didn't, right? I felt really let down, and it was too early, and I felt like I wasn't ready, and all this. Well, now I realized that was the best thing that he could do for me, right? Because they become almost like replacement parent figures, and that's not what they're meant to be, right? It's just codependency then arising in the relationship with a therapist, and you don't want that. There's no codependency, right? It's a therapist modeling what it will look like to be your own best parent, to treat yourself the way you wanted to be treated. That's it. That's the shift out of it, right? To become really clear of what you didn't have in your childhood and what you really longed for, to be really aware of that and have that grieving process around that, to allow yourself to feel really sad about this, to allow, to process that part, but then also stepping into that, no, in my adult, it's my job to actually parent myself. And that was hard, right? That was hard. There was a lot of resistance there. I much rather would have had someone else do that for me, parent me in that way, right? It took me a long time to do that. But this is the role of a therapist or coach or whoever you're working with, to in a way teach you how to be that for yourself, so you feeling whole and complete, and you don't need your friend or your coworker or your partner or whoever or your kids to be that other half, right? I often say it's like we're going into relationships, but it's like we're only like half a circle kind of thing instead of a whole circle. We are half circle, and we tend to attract other half circles, because that when we then come together, we feel whole. But only if he is like merging into you, or you are merging into him, right? You can't be independently complete. And in a healthy relationship, that you're actually, if you're two complete whole, like if I'm feeling whole and you're feeling whole, then we can enjoy separate things, we can enjoy being together, and there isn't that neediness, that clinging and so forth. Yeah. Let's say, okay, so it is interesting for me that so many people say to me that they feel like they have only, I think I missed a line. They feel like they have known me for a long time, even so we have only met. I seem to be good at mirroring what they want to hear. Oh, yes. Yeah. It's a skill. It was a coping skill that we learned, right? To really go in and read not just the room, the individual person. We know exactly. We're so quick at knowing what they want and need and be and behave in a way so we're less likely rejected. I always said I was like a chameleon. I could fit in anywhere, right? Except for people, when you listen to techno music, I couldn't deal with techno music. But I didn't, if you guys love country music, okay, I can deal. I love country music, right? You love pop, I can do pop, right? Or you wear this clothes or that clothes, I can do that. And I was like that chameleon. I tried to fit in. But this trying to fit in wasn't from a place of love, or that I know who I am. That was from a place of fear, that I'm going to be rejected, or I'm going to be alone. They're going to abandon me if I don't conform or fit into their way of being or be similar to them, if that makes sense, right? So it's like feeding them what they want to hear, so there is a bond and they won't leave. Yes, exactly. I have so much work to do. We all do, right? And congratulate yourself, love that about yourself, that you have that willingness to look at this and to do something about this. There's so many people that I actually think no one gets into adulthood without trauma, right? But for us, it was so much trauma that we actually have a mental health diagnosis in that sense. So it was really extreme. But the percentage of people who actually really invest some time, they go and get therapy, they go and implement some practices, some tools to really shift something within them, so they can have this deeper connection with people, right? To really feel held, to really feel seen and valued, and have that sense of belonging naturally without you having to work so hard, right? Very few people actually are willing to do that. So give yourself some credit for that, all of you. Just pause now. It's like, yes, I'm doing that. Right? This is the first part, in a sense, to really start looking after me, becoming that parent, treating myself, treating this body the way I wanted to be treated. Right? Initially, I couldn't even touch myself. So if I'm doing it now on camera, right? In therapy, often they ask, "Oh, can you give yourself a hug?" Or they do the butterfly thing. It's like, oh no, no touching. It's like not even, you don't touch me, I don't touch myself in front of you either. Right? There was so much going on there for me. So it's we all have different triggers, different stories that we're telling ourselves around that, right? The stories that I told myself, and why I can't touch myself, why this is wrong, and what that would mean about me, right? To really shine some light on that, that our bodies crave physical touch. They need that, and it is okay for me to explore that. What does it feel like if I gently massage my own arm or my fingers, right? What is it like? Right. And for me, most of those things I could not do in therapy, right? Even though I had a very good relationship with my therapist, I was very lucky there in that sense. But doing things like that in front of another human being at the beginning was absolutely impossible. I couldn't. So that's why I said a lot of the stuff I did at home by myself. I used videos and looked for people that had facial expressions that helped my nervous system to kind of co-regulate and come down again. And then by myself in privacy, I explored what that would be like, right? to like massaging my fingers, right? Just massaging my fingers on my own feet. And even for that, right, there is YouTube videos where they teach you how to massage your feet, right? What? Sometimes it's really hard to not say names. I was just about to say someone's name who sent me a video about this, but for privacy reasons I won't. But you know who it is, who you are if you're watching this video. But she sent me a video of, there's a monk that teaches you how to massage your feet and your body, and it's there's something about the way he does that is really relaxing and soothing, and it's looking after the container, right, with our feet and reclaiming, getting a sense of agency again. I am able to look after this body. I am the one who knows best what is best for this body because I'm in this container, right? I just had so much trauma, so much stuff going on in my life that I had to shut it all down. I couldn't stay connected. It's almost like it felt like I was only from here up, right? I was just caught up in my mind thinking about stuff and I couldn't feel my body. It was just not possible, right, for me. To use those kind of tools as well, to really work on yourself, to feel a little bit more safe in your body, and to explore what is it actually that you like or don't like, and and not just in terms of touching, like in all aspects, right? What kind of activities do you like doing with other people? How do you like people to respond to you? Do you like it when people give you a hug when they meet you? You know, I know some of my friends are very huggy. Others, we don't hug, right? Both is okay, but know what it is for you, and allowing yourself to stand up for that. No, thank you, not today. And see what that does in your body, right? Because when fear of rejection is still really big, that it would almost have like this sense of panicky, oh my gosh, what am I doing, right? and noticing that coming up, and reminding yourself, oh yeah, this is that childhood, like I'm in huge danger here. I won't be able to survive without this other person, and to recognize this what it is. And then you literally have to kind of talk yourself through, I'm in an adult body. I'm basically okay right now. Bringing it back to grounding myself. I'm standing. I can look after this body. I'm preparing my own food. I'm very independent. In you know, I had some of the things written out in my book, so I could read it over and over and over, so till it was so ingrained that in those moments when they came up, when someone kind of crossed my boundaries with something that was not okay, that I could say no thank you, and at the same time I could have that mental stuff, that the old stories that I had about the situation that would have come up replaced with something new, because I rehearsed it so many times. I had it written down in a journal, you know, some of the stuff I created with my therapist, right? You can get some help with that, right? Allow yourself to get some help. And it's not about, it's about finding the fine balance, right? We want to have some help, but we also want to be independent. And sometimes we have to swing both ways. It's just a pendulum that we know this is the middle ground. This is where I want to be. I don't want to be needy and clingy and thinking I can't survive with others, but I don't also want to be super independent and nope, I don't need nobody kind of thing, right? I want to come back down. I want to swing a little bit and get some input from other people, and get some help, especially in the beginning, right? So I thought I had my I do have my glasses ready. I'm so close to needing glasses to actually read your comments. Seabot said, bit of a tangent. What about the self-consciousness over having partial awareness of the strange ways we can act whilst alone, dissociated, and imagining how people may perceive that if they saw it? About the self-consciousness over having partial awareness of the strange way. Why does it have to be strange when you're alone? Right. I don't know exactly what you mean with the question. Maybe you have to clarify it a little bit. But I know when I was dissociated, and I used to dissociate a lot, and sometimes people would walk into the room without me noticing and things like that. And often people gave me that feedback that I look like a zombie or something, right? But literally, like, right, my mouse would drop apparently, and there was, my eyes were like there's no one home kind of thing. So if that is what you mean by weird what we're doing, or whether you actually mean you're still active and more doing things, but in a dissociated kind of way, you're not fully present, you're not fully conscious what you're doing, perhaps because of social norms. Yes, trying to live into other people's values. That is why it's so important to really spend some time and journal about what are my values, right? What is important to me? Because all this, I don't know which country you're living in, but some cultures have that their social norms are very ingrained in some ways, and in other areas, like I'm in Australia here, there's a flexibility, because there's such a mixture of cultures here. People, different houses, different play, in the same kind of area, do different kind of things. It's even harder to kind of know. But to know what is it, how do I want other people to see me? Right. And live into that a lot more than when I'm trying to be what other people want me to be. Is that people pleasing? Is that fear of rejection? Is that fear of abandonment? Right. Well, I am the way I am because this is truly who I am. If this is not okay with you, then that is fine. Then we are not a good match. And this is okay to end certain friendships, to end certain communities that you belong to, or hobbies or groups that you belong to, because the values or the way what they define as a social norm does not gel with you, doesn't feel right with you, right? You can create your own group of your own social norms kind of thing, or you join another one, right? Kind of thing, to really give yourself that freedom. Right. Yes, I guess so. People can respond uncomfortably to dissociative behavior. Yeah. Hard work of forgiving yourself, even if others might not. Yes, always. Every moment is a fresh start. Right? Take something from what I've learned. Okay. In this situation, I went in. I wanted to be there. I went in. That person didn't say hello, and I felt triggered. And then things spiraled apart from that, right? And when you're reflecting back on that, to recognize, oh, okay. So the first trigger was that person not saying hello, and to look into that I'm felt ignored, right? And sometimes it is a skill to learn in a way as putting myself into the other person's shoes before I have a big reaction, right? Did that person, some other people might actually dissociate too, and that person might have seriously be completely oblivious that I just walked into the room, right? That could be true too. There's other people who just deliberately ignore you, but that is an option as well. That could be that this happened, or perhaps this person is just having a migraine and or some other pain and is really not fully present. There's other options to really learn to play with that in your own thing. And when you I'm mentioning before something about imagining, I did a lot of role playing things in my head, imagining situations, like me walking into a room feeling confident, feeling complete, being me, and walking into the room, and I could feel how my anxiety went up, right? And then I practiced in my imagination when I saw a certain person doing, I felt that, and how I would ground myself in a moment before I respond or do anything else, right? I practiced that in my mind. I rehearsed this over and over and over again, so that when I really went like this happened, I was more likely to be able to use the tools that I learned in therapy, if that makes sense. So I rehearsed that in an imaginative kind of way. If you have someone that you can role play this with, then even better, right? I know Bessel van der Kolk often talks about the psychodrama, as in where you're acting things out, where you're getting someone to nurture you, right? And I know I've spoken to people, it wasn't actually all within a therapeutic setting, so that you'd have to play with that. I don't know if you have a safe enough person to do this, but if that sense, like we said earlier, that whatever you missed in early childhood, that sense of safety from a caregiver, that being loved and adored, and that was not there, that physical, and that if there's this really strong longing, for some people it was really helpful to actually role play this out, like you almost play the baby and that person holds you and rocks you like you are that little baby for that moment, to have that restorative experience once. And for some people that was really life transforming. That was that ability then to let that need go, to really grieve and be sad that they didn't have it, and the joy of actually experiencing it in this moment, in this kind of weird way, right? You're kind of pretending. But again, you be creative. Be creative. This is your healing. If this speaks to you, do it. To me, this will be weird, right? I wouldn't like it, but as I said, I know a person, and it was life transforming, literally, for her, right? So be open to different ways. That's one thing that I learned over all these years, talking to so many people. There is no one approach to anything. Right? It is so unique. And this is even in my own work with clients, right? Yes, I can teach, or in these videos, I can teach you practices and things like that. There's a place in there. But it's, you try that, and then you modify it to your own needs. It's almost like a recipe, right? I can give you a recipe. You can kind of strictly follow the ingredients as it is and do exactly how it says there, but you might like a little bit more spicy, or a little bit, you want to add a little bit of something else in as you get more experience and you practice, right? Then that's the same with the healing. You kind of learn a basic, you explore this, yeah, this could be something that works for me, but I want to change it a little bit to make it more unique. And the more you make it for you, for your nervous system, right? So your nervous system actually can calm down. That your chatter up here, that craziness, right? Kind of softens a little bit, gives you a little bit of a break, right? A little bit of peace, a little bit more calm, a little bit more, I'm present in this moment, a little bit more, right? This sigh. Oh, here I am, right? The more that happens for you, the more you trust in yourself to know what it is needed for you right now in this moment, right? Because there's no such thing. Sometimes people ask me, if I do that practice, how long should I do this practice for, right? There is no rule. There's no rule book for this, for none of these kind of practices. Make it your own. If you feel like you're in a space that after 30 seconds of doing this practice, it feels like it becomes overwhelming, then stick with 30 seconds. 30 seconds is a good practice to just get, like, especially for just getting back in my body and reminding myself I'm basically okay. I'm in an adult body. I am safe. I can look after this body, right? To reassure me, get some sense of agency back. This kind of, because I practice that so much, it takes me less than 30 seconds, right? Some practices can be really fast, but you can also make this a huge long practice. Some people like to meditate on this, or do huge long mindfulness exercises and things like that. If that is for you, then go with the long ones, but it doesn't have to be, right? To really allow yourself to find your true nature, get back, and the more you can do that, the less you need that other person. So if that person kind of walks out, you can learn to change the story, or catch, even becoming aware of the stories that you're telling yourself the minute that person walks out the door, right? Even knowing that person is just saying, okay, I'm going to go out and I go fishing with my mates, or, or the girls, or if a girlfriend going with coffee, whatever it is, right? That person is going. The minute they go, what stories are you telling yourself? To become really aware of how quickly and how that the mind just, my mind used to go crazy busy. It really was. Maybe for you too. But it used to generate so many stories. Why, or what is going to happen, or whether what. And if it wasn't about that, there may be a betrayal. So I was never jealous. Jealousy, by the way, is also just underneath of jealousy is that fear of rejection, abandonment as well, right? So I was never the jealous kind of person. It wasn't so much a betrayal. It was more the, what if they have an accident? What if they never kind of come back? Right? that kind of, my mind was more going into that kind of stories, equally not very helpful, because then you need the reinsurance. You need to kind of them messaging you that they are okay, right? And then if that person and doesn't do that, then things will escalate for you. To realize that kind of pattern that you have, right? We're all very unique in those kind of things. But the more we can be aware of this is just a symptom from PTSD, it's totally understandable that this is there given my childhood, given my upbringing, given the way my caretakers were with me growing up, right? It's totally understandable that I have that. Now I'm in an adult body. My job is to create some sense of safety, reminding myself that I'm basically okay. I'm in no immediate danger if people walking away from me, right? I can still, I'm surviving. I'm doing okay. Having some sense of agency, learning who you are as a person, what you like, learning to be able to say no thank you to things that aren't resonating with you, right? To give yourself permission to, I don't need to be that chameleon anymore. I don't need to please others to fit in, and to be liked. To also validate and acknowledge, to know, yes, of course you do want to feel liked and valued, and that it feels good. We all want that. We all have that longing. But for most of us, we don't even like ourselves. Be very honest with yourself here. Right? It isn't even so much the other people. How much do you love yourself? Because I feel this is almost the most profound damage, or the deepest thing from all interpersonal trauma, mainly, right? That inability to love oneself, because that creates just so much disharmony within the body, right? Not just intellectually, emotionally, sensationally, and we get all these chronic illnesses and stuff like that, right? Because we're constantly fighting within ourselves, feeling like I should be more like this and less like that, and I'm so broken, I'm so flawed, I'm wrong, I'm just not good enough, it's all my fault that I don't fit in, or that people reject me, I'm to blame for it, I'm so useless, right? That kind of dialogue. To really hold yourself a little gentle. Recognize where it's coming from, right? This is usually very old messaging you might have gotten from your caretakers, or this is stories you kept telling yourself in childhood to survive this kind of really chaotic environments and things like that. But now to come to a place where you become so aware that these stories are coming up, oh, here it is. And the minute you become aware, this is where you start to have the choice point, right? I talked about this in another video. There's like, once we have that choice, but so me treating myself like this, is this helping me create a future that I want? Is this helping me enrich my life? Is this helping me getting healthier and more happy, more loved, more appreciated, whatever it is that you want to be, right? Or is it just reinforcing some old patterns? Is it keeping me stuck? Is it giving me more of the same old? Right? That is the power of awareness. But first we need to become aware of the stories that are going on in our mind, and to realize that, bring some gentle kindness to them, right? As well. So let's see, but I've heard of those kind of things. It does all seem to come down to finding ways to internalize a felt sense of safety and such. Yeah. So that's so true, not liking ourselves. Yeah. Yes. And for some people, safety, that we can never be safe in or that they feel like that's not the right word to use, then don't use safety, right? So that's why I said sometimes for me, especially at the beginning, it was okay. I'm basically okay. Everything is like in this very moment, I am okay. It's nothing dangerous, because people say unexpected things can happen. Doesn't mean that it can be abused. Who knows, right? Life is unpredictable in that sense. So if safety doesn't, or any word, right, like self-love or compassion, if those words actually bring up some resistance and it doesn't work, don't use those words. Use something different. So loving kindness or gentleness. Gentleness is a word that kind of works best for me. just for me, right? In a sense, it's all coming down to the same thing, that I start to treat myself more like I would have liked to be treated. That's all that means, right? You can choose whatever word you want to give that. You can call it pineapple or strawberry. It doesn't matter, right? So to really be aware of that, so just said that what often helps people, if you are in a relationship or you have a friendship or a coworker where you feel like you're constantly triggered, but you also feel like this is a person that I can talk about this, and I can explain to that person that I am actually working on this. I realize that this is some unmet needs from childhood coming up, and I'm just really working on feeling more safe and stopping whatever it is, right, that irritates the other person, whatever. Can we have like a cue word, right, to know when that like a form of reassurance, right? If that person says, for example, strawberry, that I know that I have become too controlling or too needy, and it's getting too much for that person, right? And they need a little bit more space. That that word strawberry means I do like you. I am not leaving you. I am not rejecting you in that sense, but I need a bit of space, right? Kind of thing. Sometimes some cue words and that have nothing to do with it can really help to break the ice a little bit and get someone else on board and in helping with that, right? Helping you shift the way we connect with other people. So you can even get creative there with the right people, right? With the right people. It's the strawberries, here we are. Right? And it brings in a bit of fun too. And I think that because the moment we are becoming a little bit more playful, to be playful, it uses a different part of our brain than when we are triggered when we're in survival, right? That little shift alone makes us already more resourceful. The minute we're in a more playful, curious space, more resources or more ideas come to mind. When our PTSD is triggered, when we're in this fight-flight, everything becomes super narrow, right? It's all about focused on survival. You ever notice that? How quick? There's no other option available to you anymore. You feel it. Well, the minute the nervous system relaxes, it gets bigger and bigger and wider, and we have other ideas and we feel a bit freer. Yeah. So maybe instead of safety as a fixed state, more trusting ourselves to attempt to take the action in response to a situation. It's not our best interest. That is in our best interest. Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it too. Trusting. Yeah. So one of my affirmations I used to keep reminding myself, keep saying to myself, I'll always figure things out. But I might not know right now, but I will always figure it out. To restore some of that trust in myself, right? And then when we are doing that, when I tell myself I'm a failure, for example, my brain immediately goes in all the past, searching for all those files, confirmation files that I am a failure, right? It comes up with all sorts of stories very quickly because I've rehearsed that so many times. It's bang, 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 right? It's a flood of it, right? But if I go in and I say, I always figure things out, that was a rusty one. This was a new thing. So my mind couldn't really find any files initially on to prove or confirm that this is true. But the more you practice this, the more you remember moments where you were very creative, where you figured something out, where you're able to do that, right? And then that becomes almost like your new default, right? Of being, to switch that, but to be really aware that initially when we switching the way we are thinking, when we're changing our perception, when we're changing on who we want to be, that state of being, that I no longer want to be that fearful person that needs other people to feel whole and complete. I'm done with that, right? To really say, I'm done with that. I know this is, to shift out of this is going to feel very uncomfortable. There'll be sadness. Be prepared. There'll be sadness. There'll be grieving, right? For all the things that that you didn't have, right? Because people often forget that, right? They just, I'm getting teary now. People or only talk about what happened to you, but they will forget what was not there, right? It's like the physical abuse and sexual abuse, yeah, that was bad. But what is bad is what was not there. Someone there helping you to restore safety, someone holding you with love and making you feel loved and cared for, and someone longing for. There's things that were not there. So there is naturally some grieving coming up about that was not there. And then for you to allow yourself to give yourself that now, right? To really allow that in. I would love to be more playful. I think it is so important and also a nice feeling as an adult who wasn't allowed to have that aspect in childhood. Yes. To bring that in. And get curious, how could I bring more playfulness into my life? Sometimes it's just some more colors. Sometimes it's just more of a playful pen. Sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of childish things around here, right? Why not? Who says that just for children? Right. I used to work with children a lot of times, so I used to have boxes of children's stuff, and I even had my own little box with things in it to help me to ground and to spark some of that more that curious and playfulness within me. I used to call it crisis box back then, but this was a thing, right, that I used. Allow yourself to have things like that. If you feel like Play-Doh is going to be the thing, then why not get yourself some Play-Doh? To be playful. If you want to have a plate with a Mickey Mouse on it, why not get yourself a plate with a Mickey Mouse, or a cup, a funny, playful cup, or some more color in the house, or something, right? To shift, to disrupt that. When we want to disrupt the way you're being now, we're actually going to do things like, one of my things is I move things around constantly to disrupt the button, because otherwise you roll out of bed and you know exactly where you don't even have to think where you have to put your feet to get to the kettle and make your coffee. It's so habitual, it's so ingrained that you don't have to think about it. But I don't want to be in that mode. I actually want to be conscious. I want to be aware. I want to wake up. I want to hear the birds sing. It brings me so much joy hearing the birds sing, right? I want to hear that. I don't want to go into this automated kind of thing. So I move things around. So I have to actually concentrate, and so I don't run into things, and that, and have things in opposite sides and stuff like that, right? To really allow yourself to be playful like this. This is being playful as well, being creative. Okay. Yes, wonderful, to give ourselves permission for fun. Beautiful. I think this is a good a good place to end this live stream today with the playfulness and the fun, to really allow yourself to go out, even now, to just do something, and it doesn't have to be something grandiose. You don't have to go to the shop. It's just, the playfulness could literally be just the way you get up from the chair now, and perhaps you just do a little dance, right? That is playful. Or maybe you just it doesn't need money. It doesn't need, I need to wait and do X, Y, Z before I can be playful. No, now, right now, right in this moment. You can even sit on a chair and kind of wave with me, right? Be goofy, and allow that to be, right? Grab that sense of agency back. It's like, okay, this is me. I feel like being goofy, and allow myself to feel goofy. And if there is a sense of that fear of I'm going to be rejected or people don't like me, feel it coming up and know where it's coming from. It's like, yep, thank you. I know, but I am creating a new me here now, in a sense. I want to be someone who is comfortable in her own skin, being herself, however she feels in the moment, right? In ways. Obviously, we don't want to hurt other people in a sense, but that playfulness. So, okay. I hope that was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much. And I'm sending you all lots and lots of love and rainbows, as always, to toughen up, or not to toughen up, to brighten up your world. That was so funny. That was a funny kind of word salad. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. See you guys. Bye.